Welcome to Taiwan Talks. I'm Albert Chiu. The 2024 Taiwanese presidential election, which garnered worldwide interest, resulted in the triumph of Lai Ching-te from the Democratic Progressive Party. Currently, the spotlight is on Lai Ching-te's upcoming inauguration speech, scheduled for May 20th, the formation of his cabinet, and the subsequent execution of his policy agenda. In addition, the focus has shifted from cross-strait relations to the U.S. position on Taiwan, underscored by the presence of a U.S. delegation in Taiwan. Following the election, joining us today are Hsin-hsin, Soochow University Department of Sociology Associate Professor, and Liu Fu-kuo, National Chengchi University Taiwan Center for Security Studies Director. A very warm welcome to both on the show. After the electoral triumph of Lai Ching-te and Bi Xiao in Taiwan, they received congratulatory messages from several nations. However, in response to U.S. stance, President Biden actually reiterated that the U.S. does not support Taiwan's independence, raising the concerns about possible cross-strait relations. So, Hsin-hsin, maybe go first. What's your perspective on President Biden's request or response to the outcome of Taiwan's presidential election?
I think strategic ambiguity will remain the main thing of the U.S. policies in managing the cross-strait relations in the next following years. As usual, on one hand, the U.S. Biden administration would statement would on the U.S. government is not supportive of the Taiwan's independence. But on the other hand, we see the U.S. government send out a delegation composed of veteran high officials visiting Taiwan right after the election. So the U.S. government would not change its one China policy in banning unilateral and violent resolutions to settle the disputes in cross-strait relations.
Would you say that President Biden is afraid of the immediate impact, by the electoral victory of William Lai on the cross-strait relations, and that is why he sent a delegation right after election?
I think so. I would agree with you that the Biden administration would like to manage the cross-strait relations without drastic changes in its one China policy as well as its strategic ambiguity. So we're going to see mixed messages from the Biden administration, and as well as this time at this moment, the China economy is on a hard landing. Right. So it must be the cross-strait relations must be handled with care, caution.
Professor Liu. Yeah.
Yes. Obviously, everyone knows before the election, Mr. Lai Ching-te is somebody who is a strong supporter and advocate of Taiwan independence. So no wonder, immediately after the outcome of our election announced, President Joe Biden immediately sent out this strong message, trying to restrain the possibility to move forward. And I think if we look back a long track of U.S. policy to Taiwan as well as to China, this is something U.S. government keeps very, very tight and very clear. And this is unprecedented because in the past, between China and the U.S., summit normally discuss inside the summit, but the U.S. government has never put up this do not support independence of Taiwan in a public statement. Very rare occasion we will see such a presentation. But this time, obviously, it shows that the U.S. wants stability, making sure nothing will go beyond what we have now. And just importantly, last November, President Joe Biden met with President Xi Jinping in San Francisco. There was such a discussion, stability, and also manage such a situation would be the top priority.
But also, on the other hand, would you say that the U.S. delegation to Taiwan, of course sent by President Biden, also as a signal to the CCP, the PLA, that the sovereignty of Taiwan and also the security of the Taiwan Strait is protected and at least supervised by the U.S. government, in this event. Would you say that as well?
Yes. The delegation sent by President Joe Biden carry two significant implications. One is showing strong support from the U.S. government after the election. Whoever wins, the U.S. government will do so. If, in particular, Lai Ching-te wins, the U.S. would have to show strong support. But the other implication is making sure China understand American is strongly backing up the next government. But of course, trying to send such a warning, the red line is there. Nobody will be able to change the status quo in the Taiwan Strait.
So maybe the red line is not only for Lai Ching-te, but also for Xi Jinping himself.
Yeah.
Okay. Actually, the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken also had some comments on this outcome. He expressed hope that Lai Ching-te and other political leaders would collaborate to sustain stability and promote positive regional relations. Will Lai Ching-te continue Tsai Ing-wen's pro-American policies following the U.S. delegation's visit to Taiwan immediately after the election? Hsin-hsin. Yeah.
I would add upon the previous discussion that this morning the movement faction, the famous faction within the DPP that has a legacy. The faction with the legacy advocating the independence of Taiwan, just like dismembered Lai Ching-te from its faction. So this is a gesture to echo President Biden's statement on that the U.S. government is not supportive of Taiwan's independence. Also, right after Taiwan's election, the NORA cut the diplomatic relationship with Taiwan right after Taiwan's election. And to respond to the situation, the AIT chair, Rothenberg, just stated that the AIT is disappointed with NORA's decision, and also it reconfirms the UN resolution 2058 that Taiwan's status is yet undetermined. I think the two, all those signals show that the U.S. would be toting carefully on its one China policy to stabilize the regional stability here. And I think the U.S., the DPP, the President-elect Lai Ching-te would continue President Tsai Ing-wen's U.S. policy in a way that on two fronts. The first of all, the DPP has been supporting of its legacy policies in pro-U.S. policies for decades. And secondly, Xiao Biqing, the VP elect, is on the ticket for exactly the same reason, to sustain the Tsai Ing-wen's U.S. policy. So there are advantages and disadvantages for to carry on President Tsai's U.S. policy. On the pro side, the advantages is that that will we will continuously make substantial progress in the U.S.-Taiwan relations. There are disadvantages as well that deep green supporters would inevitably be disappointed to a degree to keep pressuring the president-elect and his government to push more aggressive agendas on declaring Taiwan independence. And we know that the next election in Taiwan will be in 2026, the county election. So that would be a challenge for this president-elect.
In what way would you kind of elaborate more the challenges?
The deep green supporters would be, if they should be deeply disappointed with the progress
towards independence.
Towards independence, they might put pressures on the electoral results to advocate more aggressive rhetorics during the campaign, which may not be welcome in international societies, to provoke China.
Right. Okay. So that's good. Professor Liu, actually, pro-U.S. stance, it will be not hard to imagine that is welcomed by the United States. But that does not mean that the United States allow Taiwan to take a step further towards independence. As much as Professor Hsin-hsin just mentioned that there is a kind of a red lines draw over there, not only for Lai Ching-te but also for Xi Jinping. So what's your take on this? Will President Lai Ching-te will walk in the direction, towards independence, or will he kind of take over the position of President Tsai, but without crossing the line, as I just mentioned?
Actually, looking back in the last few months during the presidential campaign, he has emphasized many times following whatever President Tsai Ing-wen developed over the last 8 years. So basically, our understanding is Lai Ching-te, when he assumed presidency in May, basically the policy will continue. But the important point is different people articulate different policy that makes the U.S. is more worrisome about the future and draw this important red line, just the same night after election outcome announced. So we are asking the advantage whether it would be good for him to continue. I think there are bright side and dark side. The bright side is making sure everyone understands following President Tsai Ing-wen's policy approach, it will maintain the peace, stability in the Taiwan-Strait, even if not being able to dialogue and communicate with China, but at least status quo is not destroyed or affected. But on the dark side, different government comes in with the same approach, and China is changing, transforming. Xi Jinping looking into domestic demand, high demand increasing. So there is a different request for the change in the Taiwan-Strait. So the dark side may be the next government would have to think of following the same pattern, but it has to move forward. Otherwise, this policy may gradually run into some difficulty with Beijing and Washington.
Okay, actually on the eve of the election, the U.S. House of Representatives approved 2 Taiwan supportive bills. The first one is the Pressure Regulatory Organization to End Chinese Threats, so-called Protect Taiwan Act. And the second one is the Taiwan Non-Discrimination Act. These bills are intended to bar China from international financial systems and organizations in case Chinese action poses threats to Taiwan's security. So Hsin-hsin, Professor Pan, how do you perceive the implications of these 2 bills in terms of constraining China's potential actions toward Taiwan and the heightened U.S.-China tensions?
Right now, CCP's ruling legitimacy essentially rely on 2 issue fronts. First, its economic development. Second, the Taiwan issue. For the former, for the economic development, China's economy is worsening right now. And it is expected to be worsening in the following years to come. So the 2 bills are made in the intention to preempt China's use of force for redirection for its bad economy. So essentially, this is a warning call to the Chinese government that if they should make a use of force, go for the use of force, then it would be difficult for China to get access to any international fundings or fundings for salvaging its worsening economy. On the other hand, on the other issue, that losing Taiwan would be bad for Taiwan. It would be bad for China. So the 2 issues are actually linked by the 2 bills in order to preempt China for taking extreme measures in settling the Taiwan issue.
Professor Liu, Taiwan-friendly bills like this passed. Would you say that the continuation of this type of move is going to be beneficial to the, of course, Taiwan-U.S. relations, but also in the future will kind of encourage the national leaders of Taiwan to walk in the direction of independence, or maybe on the other way around, that's kind of prevent Taiwan from going further in that direction, simply because the United States would say that, okay, I give you some kind of bonus, but you have to stay as a status quo.
Yes, this is really challenging for our next government. Of course, anytime the U.S. Congress pass favorable bills or laws supporting Taiwan, all Taiwanese would be very happy and also prefer to look into the bright side. But of course, our leaders should not be interpreting such good attitudes. I think there is always political possibilities. When U.S. granted something to Taiwan, there would of course comes with different requests. We have to be very careful. But looking into the realistic realm in the international community, as I study international studies and also foreign policy, I consider these two bills basically carry much stronger support from the United States to Taiwan. But of course, there is a possibility, shows that this is intensify diplomatic warfare against China, supporting Taiwan, and for especially supporting Taiwan to be into International Monetary Fund and also World Bank. These are UN special agency. Obviously, China is one of the key members. So this will be such a daunting task for the US. Of course, I do not know for now how exactly US would be able to make this happen inside UN special system. So, but I also said two bills for now show strong support. But important part is we should not really misinterpret such a good deeds to Taiwan, and we should really carry and tighten the relations, work on the same approach. But it should not be understood as the way encouraging Taiwan to move down the stream to Taiwan independence.
Okay, all right. On the day of his election, Lai Ching-te declared that in the face of China's military and diplomatic pressure, he's resolute in safeguarding Taiwan. He aspires to shift from containment to engagement and from confrontation to dialogue, all underpinned by mutual respect and dignity. So what are the most pressing concerns that Lai Ching-te must address in cross-strait relations? Professor Pan, what's your interpretation of this?
So in my humble opinion, I think there are two issues that President-elect would have to deal with. First of all, there is a great demand in international societies that Taiwan should resume a dialogue with the Chinese government. So how to create a dialogue with any precondition, or at very least a precondition that is acceptable by the majority of people in Taiwan, that would be a serious challenge for our president-elect. On the other hand, the president-elect has to somehow find a way to reduce the arms race taking place right now in the cross-strait relations. So these are the two challenges that are internally connected.
Professor Liu, what's your take on this?
From what we heard, Vice President Lai Ching-te during the presidential campaign, he also expressed such a good hope, peace in the Taiwan Strait. But during the campaign, that is a political gesture. Once he takes office, he has to be more realistic and look into some possibility. If the policy you can tell, but you cannot really move forward, that is really nothing. So what I can tell at this moment, in order to resume the dialogue across Taiwan Strait, I think DPP government, especially next government for him, there is some daunting task for him to really cross over, because everyone knows DPP for starting from very beginning, 1992 consensus, one China policy cannot be shared domestically by many followers. So if you are asking how exactly the next government will be able to break through the barrier to resume the dialogue, I think this will be the beginning point. Looking from Beijing, if there is no common political ground and there is no possibility to resume anything across the Taiwan Strait, so I do think the next government carries such a heavy burden. What Vice President Lai Ching-te said now is completely shared by many in Taiwan. We want peace, we want stability, we even want much moving forward, dialoguing with China. But the government would have to make it happen for our people. So that is the big challenge.
So maybe President-elect Lai will have to figure out some kind of slogan that's parallel to 92 consensus. That's on the one hand okay by Xi Jinping, but also on the other hand does not deviate from his party's platform. Okay. According to international media reports, the New York Times featured a headline reading Taiwan elects Lai Ching-te as president in a setback for Beijing, while Bloomberg titled their piece Taiwan elects leader China labels as troublemaker in a blow to Xi. CNN reported with Taiwan voters defying China's warnings, grant ruling party a historic third consecutive presidential victory. And the BBC covered the story as Taiwan chose Lai Ching-te as president in a historic election, stirring discontents in China. Professor Hsin-hsin, so how does the international media perceive Taiwan in the context of this election? So what are the international challenges facing Taiwan to the eyes of those international reporters?
I would like to clarify my previous statement that I don't think Taiwan must negotiate with China, take initiative to negotiating or opening a dialogue with the Chinese government. In a way that I don't think the ball is in Taiwan's court. So it's just that international society has such demand, and our new government must have somehow find a way to address this demand, especially when when the Chinese government takes initiative in opening such a dialogue. And I think the international media feels ambivalent about the electoral results. And I do expect that the Beijing would keep pressuring on Taiwan for advancing its political agenda. I think the internal anxieties is widely shared by the international media is against the backdrop that the victory of a hardcore pro-U.S. president China at least wants. And on the bright side, that this is an assurance that Taiwan would, for the next following years, mostly stay on the track, aligned with the U.S. policy and as well as other U.S. legacy allies in East Asia. But also with the prolonged war in Ukraine and Middle East, plus China's aggressive conduct in South China Sea with the Philippines and Taiwan-Strait, and international media has soaring concerns for a third world war taking on. So it's essentially focused on how to de-escalate the tensions in the Taiwan Strait as soon as they can.
Right. Professor mentioned this really well because on the one hand, the Ukrainian war still continues on, and not to mention the war on Hamas by Israel is still very intensifying, right? So certainly many countries, including the international media, does not want to see another tension arising in Taiwan Strait. Professor Liu, so what is your take on this international sentiment regarding the stability and security of Taiwan, and also how to deal with this, maybe some people will view them as a troublemaker, the CCP, in this scene?
For those international media projected our president-elect in the last few days, basically quoting on the practice our president-elect did in the past. So the important point, once he takes over the power in May, he will have to gradually build on this positive image, because if the policy does not change, international media definitely will base on his so-called track records supporting, advocating Taiwan independence. So that would be something connecting with troublemakers in Asia. So if President-elect Lai Ching-te is planning something for the better future, I do think he will have to start working by the time inaugurate, and he would have to deliver such a positive message connecting with China and also with the United States. I don't think after the last 2 years, Taiwanese people living under the shadow of a military threat from China, people are just thinking we should not continue such pressures with us, because not just our daily life, but also international business. Investors are leaving, they are watching, they don't want to come into such a dangerous place. So I agree. Currently, 2 wars already really turned the global market down, and they cannot really afford another war, especially in East Asia. Especially Taiwan is well connected with the leading supply chain chips in the global market. So this would also keep us very cautious.
Okay, the final question, what are the key components that the President-elect Lai or the President Lai in the future must have in place to commence a dialogue with China? I know it's not easy, but we have to try. Professor Liu.
During the inauguration address, I'm hoping personally, as one of the Taiwanese, hoping to see President-elect, until then new president, should really aid on a positive message to China as a way to kickstart possibility to dialogue. Because to dialogue doesn't mean that you will sell Taiwan quickly to China. Because currently there is a problem. There is a high tension between China and Taiwan. The new government does have such a high responsibility to make sure all Taiwanese people can sleep quietly, peacefully at night. So this would have to be a positive message coming through. But what exactly it may be, I would say perhaps if not 1992 consensus, it would have to be something redefining available definition to be recognized by Beijing as well as accepted by Washington and all Taiwanese people.